welcome back to Ycft. Today we're going back to 1972, Christmas Day 1972, to talk about Nigel Neal's The Stone Tape. This is quite a peculiar film for the BBC to commission for Christmas Day.
It's not a typical ghost story.
It's not, and this will be a discussion we'll have later. Is this a ghost story or is it a science fiction story? There is an element of crossover, but I think it's actually quite a difficult film to define. And basically how it came about, Nigel Neal, very famous British writer,
Yes.
we previously talked about in Quatermass.
Yes, he did.
The BBC approached him and asked him to write a ghost story for Christmas Day.
To fill that slot.
And he did. And it's not the usual type of Christmas ghost story that the BBC would put out, and has got a long-lasting legacy, has influenced God knows how many movies, TV, and technically scientific research.
Yes.
As well. The story revolves around this group of scientists that work for this company called Ryan. They make electric goods. The company has bought this old manor house and set up a bunch of labs in there. And what they're trying to do is find a new recording medium. They're trying to beat the Japanese companies to find the new way to record media and get it to consumers. So they've got this place in the countryside where they can just concentrate on their work. While they're exploring this new facility, they find a room that has been undeveloped.
Yes.
That was supposed to be where the computer server and hard drives were all going to live.
Yes.
And a decrepit wooden wall. Behind this wooden wall is some steps that go up to nowhere, some stone steps. There is also a table with some tins of Spam and a very creepy Christmas. They realise very quickly that the room is haunted by the ghost of a maid who fell to her death screaming.
On the steps.
On the steps.
That lead to nowhere.
They instantly jump at the opportunity to study ghosts using modern technology.
They once had a go at it with bell, book and candle. Well, we're rather better equipped. I'm going to chuck the lot at it.
Do you mean go after it with electronics and then...
Find out exactly what makes it... Well, it doesn't tick. It patters its feet and screeches.
Pushing the boundaries between what should and shouldn't be studied.
Yes. Nicely done.
It's a weird one to try and explain. This one, there's something that's so British about.
It is very British in nature.
Yeah, there's also something very 70s about it, like the way they're dressed, the way the actors act, and also just how subtle a lot of the dialogue is.
Yes, for sure.
So we should probably talk a bit about stone tape theory.
The stone tape theory.
They made this discovery that certain people react to the ghost in different ways. Like some hear it closer, some hear it further away, some don't feel it at all, some feel cold, some feel hot. Every single person reacts differently when in this room. And our main character of Jill, played by Jane Asher, is very susceptible to it. And she's the first person that sees the ghost. Yeah. I gotta say, this is something that follows over from Quatermass in the Pit. The use of sound effects
is incredible.
I know it's completely different productions, but just another thing with Nigel Neal's work,
it's
just
Nealism,
sounds that just make you uncomfortable. The scream is so piercing.
Poltergeist activity via sound is it's
Actually, this did inspire Steven Spielberg and Tobe Hooper for Poltergeist.
Apparently so. Yeah. I don't know if they've spoken about it personally or if people have just made the connection. But
I mean, Stephen Volk, who made Ghost Watch, he's actually talked on the special features for this, because this is a relatively new Blu-ray. This one, there is another special edition of this one, which is like a big box set with a book and everything. And he's talked on the special features about the influence of it. Different people react in different ways to what goes on in that room. Some people see the ghost in different parts of the room. Some can't see her at all, but can hear her. And some can even just have a feeling. And they realise through feeding all this data into the computer, because even they have someone who's just straight up doesn't feel a thing. So he's like the base level. Yeah. Like he kind of he's the outlier that proves the outcome, I think is the phrase that they use.
What about me? You've got no playback. That's all some transistors missing. You're the exception that proves the rule, thank God. I'm waiting for the penny to drop.
The people in the room kind of act like TV receptors, like a TV antenna, bringing in signals from somewhere else. And they realise it's the room itself. It's the stones are keeping a memory. Yes. It's this idea in ghost hunting that ghosts are just residual messages of traumatic things that have happened in their life, and they'll just keep repeating the same thing
So it's
over and over again.
It's the room. What? Just the room itself, nothing else. Try this for size. The room holds an image. And when people go in there, they pick it up. What you hear or what you see is inside your own brain.
It's not the spirit of Louisa the maid that died that they see and they hear. It's not necessarily... They hypothesize that she's not an active spirit, that she's not self-aware. It's like, yeah, it's just, you know, a record playing on loop time and time again. It's just got caught and it's just doomed to replay all over. It's not necessarily that she's active and she's aware that she's dead and she's trying to communicate with them. It's just like watching a piece of film that's just stuck on loop, playing constantly, and that there's something in the walls or in the foundations of the building, of this siphoned off room, that is holding the memories like echoes of the past, keeping it going. It's a fascinating theory.
It is.
And it's a very scientific approach to why ghosts exist.
Yes, this makes the scientists very excited to realize this is their new recording medium.
Yeah.
If they can master this, if they can summon it on demand, then that would be the new way. But people would discover like television. Rather than having a physical set, it would go straight to the room that they are in, and they would live it.
Yeah.
Now, this type of theory about buildings and stones holding a memory wasn't created by Nigel Neal.
No, he didn't create the idea.
But it popularised it. I think he was one of the first people to put it forward in such a eloquent way that now it is regarded to as the stone tape theory.
Yeah, so it was... I think the idea of it, the idea that a location can record a memory or, you know, of a past event, it was hypothesized hypothesized by a guy called T.C. Lethbridge, who published a series of books in the 60s. I think they started in 1961, and he basically took a very scientific approach to try and explain why people see ghosts or apparitions, and he talked a lot about this idea of a house or a building recording something from its past. He didn't use the phrase stone tape. That was a Nigel Neal name. But yeah, Neal did not come up with it. This guy Lethbridge, incidentally, he came up with a lot of other interesting ideas relating to maybe why and how we see ghosts. Even, you know, talking about ghosts maybe are visions from the future, like us in the future, just getting caught in a time rift or something. Really interesting concepts. But again, like, you know, taking a very scientific approach to paranormal.
It can almost explain why certain people are more prone to ghostly activity than others.
But what did you hear? I didn't hear a thing.
I saw her. Again.
Same place?
No, there.
Why certain buildings, you know, the older a building is, the more haunted it appears to be, but it could just be because of the materials it's made out of.
It's such an interesting approach to a ghost story, especially when the scientists then, they're bringing all their tech, they're trying to find what triggers it so they can get more data to work out how this works. And I really do like that whole process that they go through. And Nigel Neal has said he knew computers existed, but he didn't really understand the tech.
No.
But apparently he got a lot of the roles that people play in those types of industries quite accurate. And he says one thing he really liked was recording equipment back then just looked really interesting.
Yeah.
Lots of spinning tapes and cables, and it just looked really cool.
It did,
and especially in this like stone room that they've created. It's something that wouldn't look as good today. He said if it was to get remade, they would just have to create new ways to make it look interesting.
Yeah.
Outside of Jill, our other main lead, and I believe is the top build, is Peter, played by, I've already forgotten his name, Michael
Bryant.
Michael Bryant. He is essentially the director of this group of science. He's the one who's tasked with making sure that they make what they need for Mr. Ryan, and he's an arsehole. Yeah, God, as a character. So it's established quite early on that him and Jill have had some type of relationship.
They still have. They're still conducting an affair.
Yeah. Obviously, we do find out that he is married.
Yeah.
And later on, he also is sleeping with his assistant. So he's not a nice fella.
No. He's ambitious to the point of manipulation, and his crew, to a certain extent, are expendable. He doesn't really care about Jill. He is just using it. She's a computer programmer, and she's very talented in what she does, and he is basically just using it. He keeps reiterating time and time again, you know, I need you for this, I need you to stay. He's absolutely horrible. The thing is like when you first meet him, you get the idea that he's actually very good, you know, like it being like you know, on the surface a good boss. Like, he can chat to all of his team, and, you know, like, he's good, like, with boosting morale and getting people interested and getting people going. But he is an absolute bastard.
But he's also quite intelligent.
Yeah, very.
And there's clearly a reason why he's in that type of role.
Position, yeah.
And his performance is incredible.
He's very good.
The pair of them, I think, are very, very good.
There's a nice balance, because Jill, as you mentioned, you know, she has heightened sensitivity to these things. So she's very, she thinks with her heart as well as her head, because obviously she's still a very intelligent woman. But yeah, she feels things almost, you know, like very empathetically, because when she realises she has seen a ghost, the first thing that she does is she gets very emotional about it, because she can't bear the idea that this young woman is somehow trapped in time and, you know, potentially doomed to relive her death over and over again. It's just a horrible concept, and it is when you think about it. You know, if that's what ghosts are, if they are conscious of the fact that they're dead, it's a horrible thought, and she feels that very deeply.
Something we kind of have to talk about is her position within the team.
Yeah.
In many ways, Peter just kind of almost treat her a little bit like a secretary. I feel like throughout the rest of the team, she is respected just as much as anyone else, because at the time, a computer programmer was not a very common role. I'm going to say, like, especially for a woman, and other than a secretary that we see once or twice, she is the only woman on that team.
Yeah, but she's well respected by.
And she's well respected.
Else.
She's obviously extremely intelligent.
Yeah,
she's doing things that nobody else in that team can do. When he says, like, I need you, he actually does. For the type of work that they're going to be doing, she is a vital part of it. And I think that's just a really interesting commentary on women in the workplace.
I think so. She also, you know, as the scarier things get and the more time they spend in that room, she also demonstrates a bravery, I think, and a resilience in a way that some of the other men don't.
Yeah.
You know, some of them break a little, you know, quite quickly, whereas she, you know, she's very steadfast in trying to see this through.
But that could also be we also don't know how the ghost activity is affecting everyone on a personal level, because we know it does affect everybody differently. So yeah, she is portrayed as being, like, a bit braver than everybody else, but we do see even the guy who initially has no reaction to it, at one point he just, like, clasps onto his ears, and it's, like, really physically so we don't know how it's affecting each individual person. Yeah. But everyone kind of has a point where, like, this is far enough now. Yeah. Yeah, what they're trying to do is make the ghost come out on demand. And this idea, it's Peter that realizes when looking at the data, because when Jill's looking through this, like, no, this can't be true. She thinks she must have put some code in wrong, and it's Peter that realizes, again, showing that he must be intelligent, just like any of the scientists say. He's like, looking at it, it's clear to him. He's like, well, no, it's the stone. It's a recording. That's what this is. Yeah. But that then leads into this, well, is it a haunting then? It's not a ghost. Something that Nigel Neal has said. This is their interpretation of what's happening. And I think a lot of people watch that get that misconception that is solely the answer. That is definitely what it is, that it's not a ghost. It is just like, it's an echo of something that has happened. Yeah. If we look at it strictly from that point of view, this isn't a haunting, because it's not a ghost.
Louisa, the maid, is not self-aware. She is not actively haunting that particular room. It's, like we said, it's a recording that just replays itself over and over again. So yes, there is an argument to be made. Is this even a ghost story?
I think it's more a science fiction story.
But there are moments, I think, within the film. Well, Neil has even said, you know, it is sort of deliberately ambiguous, especially the ending, which of course we'll get to. But I think there are moments within the film where you can think, maybe there is some self-awareness. There is awareness, like they are maybe actively trying to communicate.
I also think it's because some people, even Jill, doesn't always see her on the stairs. It's still in that room, and we never physically see her not on those stairs. But the moments where, I saw her over there, and a couple of other people have felt her in different parts. They say, but she's twisted. Almost like that's not where she's, almost like when a videotape jumps and the film gets a bit messed up. That could lean towards that.
One of the more creepier moments in the whole film, that was for me. Because we don't even see the apparition, we just see Jill's reaction to it. And this is after everyone in the room has heard that the piercing screams, the death screams. And Jill says, I saw her again.
But she was wrong.
She was over there. and she looked wrong, twisted, almost. And it's just left to our imaginations to figure out what that means. But again, it's like, oh, I don't know, it's creepy. It's like the letter that's left, that's just been, decaying in that room for years. And I think they say it was written by the last owner of the house, who, when he was a child, must have written this letter. And that man, this was in like the Victorian times or whatever. He's since died as an old man. But he wrote this letter, and all it said was, "Dear Santa, all I want for them is to go away." And again, there's just something inherently kind of creepy about that for me.
Yeah.
A child's plea to please make the ghosts go away.
So we find out a bit of the history of the house. We find out that there was an exorcism.
Yes.
Potentially 2 exorcisms. They go to a priest to try and find like information about the house. Oh, something about an exorcism. And he comes back later. Actually, there was 1700s. There was an exorcism as well as the 1800s.
Yeah.
I love that line says, but it didn't take.
Didn't take.
But there was an exorcism on the land even before there was a house there.
Yeah.
And we find little bits of information. Something I think we see this with Quatermass as well, especially Quatermass in the Pit. I think this is something that's really good with older British TV, is little details within the story that aren't concentrated on, but make the world feel more alive. Like the random tins of spam. We don't know what they're about, but they're there. The letter to Santa. When Jill and Peter go to a bar, speaking to the barmaid, it tells, oh, used to be some Americans that used to live there, and there was one who was Jamaican. Mm-hmm. And he described it as, was it yuppies or duppies?
Well, she remembers it as guppies.
Guppies.
She can't quite remember, but the actual term is duppies.
Guppy. He said there were guppies in the store where he worked.
Guppy's a fish. Tropical.
Yeah, it's a Caribbean term for basically their version of a poltergeist, of a restless spirit.
It never concentrates or even tells you the fact that, oh no, he was actually talking about ghosts.
Yeah.
And that's just for you to pick up on.
Exactly. The detail is there, and if you pick up on it, again, it's horrible implications of there have been hauntings and sightings in this house for
as long as it's been there.
Years, even predating the house. And yeah, it's those little details. And again, just to like the Quatermass-isms that we've seen, specifically for me, Quatermass and the Pit-isms, because I'm not hugely familiar with Nigel Neal's complete body of work, but I love Quatermass and the Pit. And one of the more scary scenes in that film is where the policeman takes Andrew Keir and Barbara Shelley into the nearby houses that have been long abandoned, and you can see the fingernails on the wall, and it's very decrepit, and the policeman's getting very, touchy just by being there, and saying that things got so bad in this area that everyone had to move out because, there were evil things being seen, there were bumps, there were noises, just, again, what we would call poltergeist activity. And in that movie, again, it's all triggered by disturbances of the ground. There's something there that predates all of the buildings.
Because we have something similar with a character who we meet in the local tavern who used to play in the house as a boy. They would go smash windows and stuff like that. And they bring him there as a test, essentially as a test subject, as a witness. And so you find out that one of his friends ended up in a mental hospital based on the experience. I love this line. Says, he's all right now. He's got a good job. He's all right.
Yeah.
So that something traumatic happened in there, and you can see him. He gets really cold. He was clearly uncomfortable here before then, and then the scream again. He loses control. And there's a great commentary on this by Nigel Neal and Kim Newman, and they were talking about this scene in our sometimes by modern audiences. It's criticised for the overacting in certain scenes out because he's walking around like this, twisting around.
Very melodramatic.
But something that was pointed out is most people would have watched this on a tiny TV in black and white, and if you look at a lot of older TV, you had to almost pantomime things out. You couldn't be subtle. We watch things now. I'm looking at my TV, right? Like I've got 50-inch TV in front of me here, and we can see the subtleties in people's faces in performances way better than we could back then. They had to exaggerate their movements.
Yeah. It didn't bother me at all.
It didn't bother me at all. Like I think it just because we watch a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We're used to that style of acting from like the 60s going into the 70s.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've ever seen someone put this logic to it. Well, of course, it was just based on the way people watched things back then. You had to emphasize what you were doing. Things were just, and yet most people would have watched this in black and white. So this rescan has a little note on the back which basically said, I'm just gonna read it out. It says, "The stone tape was shot on videotape for broadcast. Please approach the technical quality of this upscale with empathy."
I do. You don't need to tell me, Blu-ray. I do.
There's certain bits that do look quite good, then there's some bits where there's like colour kind of like streams off when they're moving. And it's an issue the BBC had with a lot of, especially TV. Daniel said a lot of his plays were just gone because someone accidentally filmed over the tape, which is something we'll get to in a bit. But we've seen this with old Doctor Who's. There's old like specials that have just completely disappeared. And that's because it was cheaper to film on tape than it was to film on film. You film something on film, it can be there forever, it can be stored. Tape deteriorates much quickly, and it can be reused.
Yes.
And that's what made it so popular. But also tape is really difficult to upscale.
Yes.
So it's kind of a miracle that this even survived. Because usually this would have been shown once, maybe twice, and maybe not shown again for like 10 plus years.
The irony that this film exists now as an actual recording as well, that can be perpetuated just indefinitely.
I was saying about the tape being wiped during their experiments. They're kind of like blasting the room with sound to trying various different ways to trigger the activity. And there's this great moment where Peter's like, "You will come when I demand it."
It's fantastic. He gets really irate with it because most people now have heard it, have seen it. He's like, "Come when I tell you." It's so angry with it.
Come when I tell you!
They can experience it, but it will not record onto any of their equipment either, which is what is kind of the giveaway. It's like, well, it's us. We're the ones that are receiving it, not the tech.
Yeah.
Because one of the guys like, "No, I could hear it in my headphones though." And like, "Yeah, you heard it, but the machine didn't."
Yeah.
I got them on my headphones.
You got them in your head.
What about the hotspots?
Forget it, Eddie.
I mean the whole temperature thing.
There isn't any.
So he's going crazy. And he's just blasting it over and over, and everyone's like, "This is too much." You can see people like physically in pain in this room.
Yeah.
Like, and this is where you see everyone drop off like one by one as it becomes too much for them.
Yeah.
And then it just ends. And she's like, "She's gone."
She's gone.
How do you mean?
Yeah.
Another character whose name I've kind of forgotten.
Collie?
Colin.
Collie.
Or Collie.
I don't know which one you're thinking of though.
Like the site manager guy who lives in the
Collie.
Is that Cuthbertson?
Ian Cuthbertson.
Ian Cuthbertson. Yeah. Also a really good role. I really liked him. I really liked him in this. You said there was one actor who had to be his lines had to be taken by somebody else because he was only contracted to a certain amount of time. And when they did reshoots, he couldn't come back.
Come back. So then Ian Cuthbertson came in and like filled in his bits, and hence why he's in the room a lot when they're doing the experiments, because he took over like one of the scientist actors. I don't know who.
He's like, "You've wiped the tape."
Yeah.
You know, like if you, especially you have electronic stuff near a videotape, there's a good chance you would wipe it.
I'll tell you what he's done. Do you know what he's done? He's wiped the tape.
There's a great moment as well when, again, they're blasting sound throughout the room and everyone's getting like physically a bit sick with it as well because it is just too much. And then the thing that Jill works with, like her particular machine, and it starts typing text of its own volition, and then words like pray and soul start appearing, and Peter's like, "Well, you must have inputted this. You must have done something." And Jill's like, I've not touched it. And then one of the guys loses it and he's like, "It's in the computer."
I love that moment.
Starts freaking out.
It's in the computer! No! It is! Bloody fool! Jill picked up words! You got words, you saw that's how it works, I told you! There it is!
We started debating this moment because you said, "Oh, that's proof that it has to be an actual haunting." You're like,
I think there's a good argument there.
There absolutely is, because it could be something conscious, it could be the spirits reaching out.
Something trying to communicate.
Or it's a different recording, it's a different echo. Jill realises that this is just one layer of the recording. It goes back deeper. The fact that there was an exorcism prior to the maid's death shows that there must be other stuff here, that there are layers and layers and layers of these recordings throughout history. I think those words could just be scratching at the surface of other things that are trapped in there. Because we know there's been at least 2 exorcisms on this site. There's a good chance we would have heard like pray and soul.
Quite possibly.
So we could just be seeing those echoes, and that's the first hint that there is something else down there than just the one that we've been seeing. Because we also don't see her again after that version of that part of the tape gets wiped.
Why these words? Pray, soul, pray again, prayer, save. They're nothing to do with falling off steps.
Oh, forget it.
She's potentially gone at that point.
Yeah, that memory
That memory has been wiped.
has been wiped.
That's my theory for that. Which could be
Yeah.
just as plausible, or it could just be
Well,
an actual haunting.
I mean, we know that the land itself goes back to the Saxon ages.
She finds out that it goes back 7,000 years.
7,000 years. So that is 7,000 years of memories and echoes that are trapped within this particular section of
Yeah.
this house. And yeah, it's a really good chilly moment as well, where Jill kind of realizes that whatever this is, like there are voices there that aren't just Louise's, and you can hear it sometimes as well. It almost sounds like mumbling,
Yeah.
like incoherent mumbling, but behind the screams. And yeah, it's that realization that there is something else here that predates
someone else
all of this.
say something, oh, the others.
She says that.
She says that.
The others.
Like,
Different film.
they're completely different films. Similar vibes in a weird
Yeah.
way. Like residual hauntings.
Or active hauntings in that
Active
case.
active hauntings. Well, is this an active haunting?
Not knowing that they're dead.
Again, this is one thing. Like, is she aware that she's a ghost and haunting over, reliving this over and over again, or is she just an echo or a recording? Like I said, there are arguments for both.
It's ambiguous.
It's very, very. It's
deliberately ambiguous.
Deliberately ambiguous. So we also have a side plot of another like mad scientist character who is working on making
Washing machine.
a special washing machine, and every time we see him twice, like 2-3 times, he's always got different. His hands are always dyed different colors, and he desperately wants Ryan, the big boss, to set him up in this new lab. Ryan tells Peter to essentially deal with him, and I think because Peter doesn't deliver when he said, "Oh, we've got it," we've got it, because they're all celebrating because they've discovered, "Oh my god, this could be it." And I think as punishment for him essentially being wrong about that,
He moves this other guy.
he moves this other guy in. So there's a lot of like chatter about almost like invading forces or opposing sides. They're desperately trying to beat the Japanese in essentially what is a technical arms race here for recording equipment. Yeah, and also got Peter, who's very much like, this is my this is my lab. Like, I'm in charge. This is my domain. The invading force of another strong, not necessarily strong male character, but another like controlling character that could be a threat to him and his authority later along the line.
Yeah, definitely. It threatens his ego.
Threatens his ego. That's a better way. A much better way of putting that. The pressure that he's feeling from that scenario impacts how quickly he pushes the experiment in the room, pushing things too far, potentially making things worse later on by wiping that first layer.
Yeah.
So it's when they're looking at the room to finally start moving in the equipment. There's a good line early in the film where he talks about, because occupied that room and it's keeping the computer room hostage. And she starts to feel something and nobody else does, and that's when she starts hearing other voices. And she continues her research. She's kind of told to everyone else, kind of looks like she's having a bit of a breakdown.
Just take some leave, Jill. Take a month off.
2 months.
Take 2 months
Take
off.
2 months.
And don't come back.
Yeah. But fair, I think because he's moved on to a new mistress, I think he's very happy for her to
it's convenient.
to leave. But she continues working and goes back into the room one more time. Starts to feel very uncomfortable. It leaves, and for the first time there is a haunting outside of the room. We see 2 glowing red spheres that kind of look like eyes.
Yeah. But
I think specifically we're told in the commentary they're not eyes. That's just kind of how they're
orbs.
portrayed. Force her back into the room. So this is the first time we've seen something outside of the room.
Outside of it, yeah.
Although, like, a counterpoint to that, when others have been experimenting in that room and she's not been in there, she's just been in the office, she can feel whenever the ghost turns up. So there's a link there.
Yeah.
So this could just be something that she's seeing. It could be something pulling her back in that is going on in the room and she's just visualizing it. Hard to tell.
Don't know.
And suddenly lots of weird, twisted, glowing spectres arrive. And this is the debatable part here. What is this ending? So she's forced up the stairs. I kind of thought while I was watching it, I was like, is she going to end up being the ghost and it's echoing back through time? No, not quite. Suddenly now there is an end to that staircase.
Yeah.
So she keeps going up. And then ends up on I believe it's called a megalith. Something that's meant to be almost like a precursor to Stonehenge, or a Stonehenge type figure, a sacrificial table. So we see a whole entire set here it's also pointed out with Louisa that the fall's not far enough to kill her.
No, the stairs aren't that high.
But now we see with Jill, she seems to be falling through an unnatural area.
Spiral.
Just spiraling. And then, yes, she does die. And she did theorize that Louisa was the last person to discover what the room actually was. And potentially this is just repeating. Everyone who discovers it is eventually just killed by it.
I think so, yeah. Basically, she suffered the exact same fate that Louisa had. Louisa was also presumably walking up the stairs, not to go somewhere in particular, just trying to escape what was coming after her up the stairs. But again, it's ambiguous. What are those things that appear in the room? Because, yeah, they initially appear as like these red orbs, and then they sort of morph into these almost anthropomorphic green blob sort of things. They look almost like people that are trying to form, but they don't quite materialise fully. And
could that be what she meant when she said that Julia was twisted and wrong?
Quite possibly. But we don't actually know what they are. It's like, are these just also recordings of the past? Like, what is it? And even in the commentary, Nigel Neal is asked, what is going on here? Like, what actually is happening? Is this supernatural? Is it extraterrestrial? Like, what is going on? And he said it's subterrestrial.
Almost primeval.
He said, he specifically said the word primeval. There is an evil force at work, but he didn't really expand on it more than that. I think, again, preferring that, interpretation be ambiguous.
Yeah.
But something inherently primeval exists on that land. Now, I don't know whether it needs a sacrifice every now and then.
I was just about to bring this up. The type of monolith structure that she's on there would have been used for ritual sacrifice.
Yeah.
If we're going on the stone tape theory, is that those formations we see, I think they could be a mashup of all the memories that are trapped in this land. And we're also seeing the memories of the room itself. That's why we can suddenly see the top of the stairs again, eventually going back to what it was right in the very beginning. So maybe just over time, whenever anyone discovers it, it takes another sacrifice and they all die in a similar way. But it's technically not on the stairs. It's actually on the megalith. It's on the table.
Megalith. Is it megalith or monolith?
Megalith was what I read.
Right, interesting.
Monolith is like straight up, I believe.
Yeah.
Like a standing thing. This is more of a table.
Yeah.
I think I think they're actually all falling from there.
Yeah.
But just in the context of the room they're in, it looks like they're just falling from the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
So I do think it looks for sacrifice. And when you go down that path, it actually is a haunting of some kind. It is supernatural. But it's actually something deeper and older than supernatural. It might not even be something like it's a ghost. If it's something that's so ancient and so evil, the following hauntings are actually just residual echoes that are trapped in there. So you do the stone tape theory would fit in, but it's something that's caused by something much older.
Something that's much older, but also active.
Yeah.
For it to need a sacrifice, then that is something that is pulling some strings.
Yeah.
Something wanted those stairs to lead up to that structure. It wanted her to climb up to that thing and fall.
I think it picked her from the very beginning.
I think so. Well, again, she's the one with the heightened sensitivity.
And interestingly, that means that the kids that were playing there, none of them died, but what they were changed for life and maybe just wasn't the right person.
Yeah, maybe. Again, there's so many questions here. Does it only just need women? Because the only other person we see this happen to is Louisa.
Yeah.
Again, it's not really delved into
that
much. But I love the very end.
Well, it goes to trial.
Yeah.
And
he does a dirty in the trial.
He basically says it was due to her mental state.
Says
On the other side says, was it necessary to say all that, about her? And he's like, well, it was obvious, wasn't it?
She was losing her mind.
Yeah, he's kind of taking all blame off himself.
Yeah.
So he's came out okay, and a great little detail is that her coat is still in the office.
Yeah, but he's also ordered all her work to be destroyed.
Yeah, that's when we see that she discovered it was 7,000 years old.
Yeah.
This site. A worry that Peter had earlier was that, the environmental protection people would come along when they realise how old the site is, and then they'd never be able to do anything. Well, they have found it now.
Yeah, now it's a site of historical significance.
Yeah, so you can't do anything from now, and he's been told there will be a summons about it. And security guard tells him, Yeah, they were here for a good few hours. But they told me to ask you something. Did you know about the room?
And before they went, one of them said, did you know about the room?
What?
Just that, sir.
So Peter goes into the room, and we hear Jill's final moments screaming at him.
Help me! Peter!
Jill!
And he just hands to his ears, screams into the camera. There's I always really like. Sorry, I realized you were about to say something there. The difference in the lighting in the corridor, which is very much like red, and then it's kind of like blues and greens in the main room. So it's almost like you cross a threshold when you enter the room because of the difference in the cinematography between the two. And in that moment, like, he's just completely covered in like green lighting after walking down this red corridor. It just visually, it is a treat, and I feel sorry for anyone who only ever watched this in black and white.
I know,
because these moments stand out so well.
Or who only managed to see it once in 1972 and never managed to catch it again.
Yeah. This version of the Blu-ray only came out in March. We actually wanted to do this a lot sooner, but we realised that if we hold off a little bit, we could actually get a Blu-ray of it for this.
I got two things. So, one, the irony of, Jill is the one who at the beginning, when she first sees the ghost of the maid, and, she's crying to Peter, and she's like, oh, isn't it just... It's awful that the idea that, her screams is like the last thing that's left of her, essentially. It's like the same exact thing happens to her. That's her fate. To be an echo existing in this room, just screaming out the name of her once lover, who failed to help her. But the other thing I was going to say is, how do you interpret that thing of did you know about the room?
I think they heard the ghost. You can look at it two ways. Either, did you know about this room before you moved in here and started experimenting in it? You should have come to get us.
Yeah.
Or they experienced something.
Did you know about the room?
Did you know? Were you in the know?
So it's all, yeah, exactly. So it's like did you know that this room existed? In which case, like, you should have let us know, because it being very old, probably, like, historically significant. Or did you know? Because
they would have also heard a screaming Peter's name.
Yeah.
It's such an eerie way to end it. This is a very unique thing to watch on Christmas. It's about as unique as watching The Woman in Black on Christmas.
The main thing that I take away from it is the thing that it's doomed to repeat itself. This is a cycle that will just go on and on. There will inevitably be another group of people or another person that goes into that house for whatever reason who meets a similar fate.
Yeah.
And it could take years. It could be quite soon. But it will happen again. And I think it'll continue to happen time and time again. And that's the really scary thing, is like there's no closure to it. As you say, like, it's so evil, whatever it is, or so ancient. It just it can't be stopped.
I love that idea of, like, the way the guy in the town justifies, we heard the rats. Because one thing you do hear, the first thing you hear is the footsteps of everyone upstairs. And science part, well, if there were rats here, those tin of spams would have been gone years ago.
Again,
there'd be nothing left of them.
It's another, like, subtle little
very subtle. I'd forgotten about it until just this moment.
This idea that it's rats, and that's what some people have taken away from it. It's like, oh yeah, there's loads of rats in there.
No, there's none.
It ain't rats.
Even the rats are scared.
Yeah.
Do you have any more notes on this?
I just wanted to mention that the director of this is Peter Sasti, who directed Taste the Blood of Dracula.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Done a few other horror things, but that's what I know him from.
That's now what I know him from.
Yeah.
Something interesting that Kim Newman said to Nigel as well. It's kind of only in the UK can a writer get as much credit as a director or a lead actor, because he had nothing to do with the actual making of this. He just handed in a script, and this is one that he actually does really like. He said the only thing he would change if they would do a remake, and I think they did. Was it 2016? I think there was a radio
broadcast of it. Yeah.
He said it would basically just to redo things with a bit more money, but acting wise and everything, there's absolutely nothing he would change, and I think the acting in this is stellar.
It absolutely
but
is
look,
stellar.
his name is so prominent, even in the main titles. At the very end, his name is just the same size. He said when working in America, you don't really, because he's worked obviously with Universal and a bunch of other production companies over there, you don't really get that same type of recognition as a writer.
No, it's true.
It's usually like either the lead star, director, or the producer. But it's interesting that for someone who had, other than writing it, no hand in the actual production.
No.
Of you sometimes might see it with like the author of a book.
Yeah.
But it's quite. I've never seen it with any other writers.
I know, and Jane Asher even said that this could just be a memory thing, but she said that she can't remember Nigel Neal being on set.
Yeah.
Either, so his involvement really was minimal.
Yeah, and apparently he didn't have to do any rewrites either.
No, it's great to know that he thinks it's a really stellar adaptation and that he wouldn't change a thing.
That's more than what he thinks about his contributions to Halloween 3 season.
Yeah.
So we found out John Carpenter made Prince of Darkness in homage to Nigel Neal, the Stone Tape.
Yeah.
There's various references in it, and Nigel Neal, he thought it was shit.
Yeah, I know. It was very blunt about.
And he thinks that it might have been in revenge to him asking to have his name taken off the contributions for Halloween 3 because there's so few elements of his script left. In that film.
But apparently the script is available to read.
Yeah, I'd be interested in tracking that down.
I'd be interested in listening to this as a radio.
Listen to the new one.
Because we know for a fact how important sound design is in this. You know, like where they couldn't do much with the visuals, sound is everything. So to sit and listen to this, I think would be a hell of an experience.
It absolutely would. I think I've seen it. They specifically got it in 3D sound as well. So I think it's kind of surround sound radio, which I think would be really interesting. But I think I don't know if something we could watch together. I think that's something you have to put your headphones in and just kind of experience.
I do also think that this could be remade. I do think this is a fantastic film. I really want to watch it again. I mean, I've watched it twice effectively now, like within 24 hours.
I think it would make great.
But I do think you could do it.
I think it would make a great stage production, to be honest.
It would.
I know he often refers to a lot of his works as plays.
It would be a great.
It actually would work really, really well on stage, and I think that it should be. I don't know if it ever has been. I think it should be adapted for.
You've got 2 locations. You've got the lab and you've got the room.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all you need.
That's all you need. You don't even need that many actors for it. I'm opposed to a remake of this because I think adding a few bells and whistles to it, they might be able to make it look nicer, but it's the subtleties that I think really make this work, and film doesn't work in the same way. And you'd have to change up the ending in some way to make it. If you're going to make a feature film, that always ends up having to be more of an explanation.
Yeah.
So visually they could do something incredible, but it's whether or not it needs it, and I don't think it does.
See, the only thing I'd be interested in seeing for them for a remake to potentially do is it's clear from listening to the commentary with Neil in that what those final apparitions that Jill sees in the room is not really what he wanted.
It's all he could do.
It was very restricted. So I wonder if in the script he actually he's quite specific in terms of what it is she actually encounters, and that's something that we could maybe see in a remake. But having said that, it's still perfect as it is, and it's still it's creepy.
It's all on YouTube, isn't it, to watch?
Apparently, yeah.
And like I said, it's really easy to get a hold of now because we've got a couple of new Blu-rays out of it.
I had seen this. I should have said this already at the beginning. I watched this during COVID. Me and my friend, we would like every week we'd meet virtually, and we'd each recommend a horror film that we would sit and watch, like a little virtual watch party. And he recommended, like this week we're going to watch The Stone Tape. And the only thing I could remember about it, well, the 2 things. One, I really enjoyed it, but the only other thing is I remember seeing the ghost of the maid on the staircase, and that was the only visual I had. But I still think it's brilliant. Yeah,
it was a brand new watch for me. And it's actually been recommended to us several times on this channel in the comments.
Yeah.
Especially when we talked about Quatermass. I think it's in 2 separate videos, comments saying, "Oh, you should check out Stone Tape."
Yeah.
So we did it. We do listen to recommendations.
We do.
I also want to thank our channel members.
As always,
you guys are awesome.
We love you.
Yes, we love you all. Thank you so much for the support that you guys give us. So thanks a lot, guys. Let us know if you've ever watched The Stone Tape. I guarantee there have been a ton of you that have, and those of you that did recommend it to us, along those who just have watched it, please do let us know what you think about this and what films you think it's influenced, because it has influenced a lot.
A shit ton. Literally, as you're saying, scientific research.
Yeah.
Parapsychology.
It is like pseudoscience. It's literally a way for scientists to
try and explain ghosts.
And you see that through so many different ghost stories, even ghost hunting shows have talked about this.
The stone tape
theory, and have used it to help visualize things within various different mediums. And I think weirdly, there's one last point with the way VR is going. Was Nigel Neal technically ahead of his time of having a room that is the way you experience television? We're slowly getting to the point where we won't need a screen or a headset. There'll just be a place we can go and it'll just be there. And that's kind of what he was predicting here. And he said himself, it's not what he intended at all, but it does seem to be the direction in which technology is going. So thanks a lot, guys. And we'll see you when we see you.
Bye.